In the valley of the Elwy, I remember a house where all were good to me. God knows, deserving no such thing. Comforting smell breathed at every entering. Fetched fresh, as I suppose, of some sweet wood. That cordial air made those kind people a hood over all, as a bevy of eggs the mothering wing will, or mild nights the new morsels of spring. Why, it seemed of course, seemed of right it should. Lovely the woods, waters, meadows, combes, vales, all the air things wear that build this world of Wales. Only the inmate does not correspond. God, lover of souls, swaying, considering, considerate scales, complete thy creature, dear, or where it fails, being mighty a master, being a father and fond. All right, so this poem is a combination of a few things in my mind. I see environmental, his being, concerned about the environment in it, and I also see a bit of a reflection. So it's an ode. It's addressed to the valley of the Elwy, and it's somewhat of a prayer as well because he, in the sestet, does address God. So he begins telling us that he has a memory of a very, very pleasant place from his past. And the house is not a brick and mortar kind of house. He's speaking about nature here, where at the very entering, as he said, comforting smell breathed. He personifies smell as, something that was breathing and affecting him. So he, anytime upon entering this scene, was obviously positively affected by its enrichment. Okay, fetched fresh, as I suppose, off some sweet wood. So that's the opening scene, and as we know, in a sonnet, we have something that's going to happen in the last 6 lines. So in the opening 8 lines, the octave, he is describing all of the pleasant associations with his experience of having been here. And I read something from Mariani that this was actually a friend of his that he visited, but he obviously is not referring to the people, but he uses that experience as one of the elements of his thought in the octave. In other words, the symbol, the metaphor of the visit to the home of his friends becomes, this little valley, hamlet, a little village that has a very pleasant atmosphere to it. So he uses that, and then in the sestet, he addresses a new element that he often does in some of his other poems, which I will try to show you in the analysis that follows here. So he begins with that. I'll read it again because I kind of messed up a few words there. I remember a house where all were good. God knows, deserving no such thing, comforting smell breathed it, very entering, fetched fresh, as I suppose, off some sweet wood. That cordial air made those kind people a hood all over, as a bevy of eggs the mothering wing will, or mild nights the new morsels of spring. Why, it seemed of course, it seemed of right, it should. Lovely the woods, waters, meadows, combes, vales, all the air things where that builds this world of whales. Only the inmate does not correspond. God, lover of souls, swaying considerate scales, complete thy creature dear, O where it fails, being mighty a master, being a father and fond. Okay, so I talked a little bit about it, so let's look at the analysis here. So the narrative sonnet is an ode. It's addressed, to it's speaking about something, like Ode to a Nightingale. Ode to a quaint little village here, Elwy, in Wales, in which the speaker reflects on pleasant memories from his having visited there. The octave seems at first to suggest that the inhabitants of the place were kind to him, rendering a peace and comfort, because he says, all were good to me. But we learn in the sestet that the word all will refer to the elements of nature, not the people themselves. All about the house, that would be the environment, permeated a freshness of spirit, an effusion of sweetness which the warm atmosphere seemed to have given off. The house refers to the scene itself, the woods. Okay, so everything associated with that pleasant area, that scene, enlivens him. It brings back to him memories of how wonderful it was and healthy environment. All right. Now in the sestet, usually the line 9 is to turn. Something happens in the first line of the sestet. But in this particular poem, he continues that imagery of pleasantness, combe and valley and everything he's describing. And it's not until line 11 that he gets to the turn. So let's look at this again. In line 5, he uses a simile comparing the warmth and security of a hood covering the fortunate inhabitants of the region to that motherly hen wing enfolded over a bevy of new eggs. And, that's the atmosphere of pleasantry and security. So this image reminds the reader of an image found in God's grandeur in the line, the Holy Ghost over the bent world broods, enclosing it within its wings, in that particular poem. Another image is that of mild nights associated with spring, which he describes as just one of spring's morsels, the little bits that we talked about in the poem Spring, which was like a trace of paradise. And the morsels are those, traces, little bits, strains of Eden, Garden of Eden. So mild nights brings that. He ends the octave with the thought that it just seems natural all was safe here, the right course of experience because of the atmosphere. It just seemed right that they should feel that way, and they should feel secure and happy. And I jumped the gun here when I was talking about line 11. The turn of the sonnet appears in line 11, not 9. The first 2 lines of the sestet continues this concept that all things found in the setting are sweet and beneficial. In that line, all the air things where that builds this world of whales, that we'll go back and see what he's talking about here. Lovely the woods, the waters, the meadows, the combes, the vales, all those things, okay? And then look at line 13, 9, 10, 11. Look at line 11. Only the inmate does not correspond. That's the turn, okay? So let's go down, pick up where I left off. Where is it? Okay, so all the things, all right. So in line 11 is another indictment of God's creatures dear. He's talking about, he does that in the other poem, The Sea and the Skylark, where he refers to God's highest creation. That would be man in that poem. So here, God's creatures dear. So Hopkins ends the sonnet with a prayer of petition, asking the mighty master, fond father, to complete his creature where they fail. Okay, where he fails, I should say. He prays for those who do not correspond to what is all around them. Here he again is speaking about the things in creation which, around them now, fulfill their purpose of having been created and giving beauty to the world, doing what they were created to do. All right? And this is another example of what he uses as selving of them. Okay, what they are doing should be selving. The poem could be paired with the sea and the skylark in that way, okay, in the theme, because we have the environment, in this case, everything I just read above there, the Coolman, the Valley, and everything, doing what they were meant to be in creation, and the people who inhabit that place not fulfilling their role of being what they were created to be, all right? So in the Skylark poem, the tern cries out, how these two shame the shallow and small town, if you remember in that poem, okay? Because the sound of the ocean and the sound of the skylark, shame the people because it's all smeared and seared and smutty and people are shod. So, they're removed from the beauty of the environment. In each case, the indictment is addressing the matter of stewardship of our environment. So, ever the environmentalist, he is bringing this out again in this poem, and we saw that in Benzie Poplars and Enversnade in the other two poems. And that's the theme of the poem. So with that in mind, let's take a third look at it. I remember a house where all were good to me. God knows, deserving no such thing. Comforting smell breathed at very entering, fetched fresh, as I suppose, of some sweet wood. That cordial air made those kind people a hood all over, as a bevy of eggs the mothering wing will, or mild nights the new morsels of spring. Why, it seemed of course, it seemed of right, it should. Lovely the woods, waters, meadows, coombs, vales, all the air things were that build this world of Wales. Only the inmate does not correspond. God, this is the prayer, God, lover of souls, sway in considerate scales, complete thy creature dear, O where it fails, being mighty a master, being a father and fond. Okay, so we see this in many of his poems, even like the poem to the, let me see if I finished everything here. Yeah, the poem to the bugler boy, he praises the boy for his purity. He received first communion and confirmation. But then he worried about the boy growing up and meeting the challenges of the temporal life, the temptations. And Marianne again even commented that he read somewhere in Hopkins' works that Hopkins almost hoped that he got killed. This sounds crazy, but he might get killed in the war so that he would save his soul from condemnation. And he does that in another poem that we'll see later. Okay, so that's basically what that poem is about in the Valley of the Elwy, and I'll see you next time.